What up, my glip glops? I'm your host Justin, and welcome back to another episode of the CraniumCast. And I'm here today with my high school wrestling coach, Coach Schouw.
Hello, my friends.
And today we're doing an episode of the CraniumCast, and the first thing we wanted to talk about today was having an outlet. And I think for me personally, having an outlet is something really important for a lot of different reasons. Whether it's just something to keep you busy, something fun to pursue, and passion driven. Or whatever it may be. But I think most of our passion we both had in common or an outlet was like wrestling.
Yeah, so anybody who's ever done anything athletic can tell you that having an outlet is great for a lot of things. You know, a lot of young adults will tell you that sports are their outlets for, you know, whatever they're going through in life, whether it be something that's huge to them that's really not a big deal, or something that would be big for anybody. Athletic activity, whether it be competitive sports or just working out on your own or running even, it's good for a whole lot of reasons beyond just competing.
I even running. I know in high school and in college and no matter where, when, in conditioning, they're everyone's like, oh, I hate running. Can we just wrestle today? Can we do this instead? But when you're looking back on it, or just days like now, whenever I just decide to go running because everything's on hold right now, it's it's nice, and I end up enjoying it at the end of it, and it's you may hate it in the moment or something like that, but it helps a lot. And I feel like it's something more than just getting something from it, whether it's being in shape or whatever that may be.
I'm totally with you on the whole running thing. Yeah, I was a college wrestler as well. Did it for 5 years, and I'll be the first one to sit here and say that I'm not gonna run for anybody. Running is punishment, and you can't do anything to tell me otherwise. Whenever me and my wife first started dating, she was a very avid runner, and I was not. I made sure to take her to a place where we were punished running a whole lot, and I made her run that, and then she never asked me to run with her again. Nice. So I'll be the first one to sit here and tell you that running is not my thing. I'll probably, there might be a time where I do like it, but
not anytime soon.
It's not my thing, man.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other things I'd rather be doing, but whatever makes you happy is whatever makes you happy. There are people who truly love running, and I don't understand those people, but they exist.
Yeah. God bless them. But
yeah.
No, I feel like I always gravitate towards running when it's a time during the year, when it's warm mainly. But whenever I'm not wrestling, or whenever when I first got cleared to do stuff after my surgery, I was running because I was this is the only thing I can do right now. So I'm gonna be the next Eliud Kipchoge or Usain Bolt if I can help it. And it's no, I mean not it's not that, because a few weeks after that I was I'm wrestling again and it's over. But it's the only thing I can do right there. So it's I wanna enjoy something and have something where I can get maybe that same enjoyment. But since your time in college, you've graduated from college and now you're a coach and everything like that. If for people whose outlet is their sport or whatever it is, when that time comes and they have to hang up their shoes or hang up their sport in general, what would you say would help them transfer from that and have a different outlet?
So I guess a little bit of background on myself would probably help before I answer this.
Okay.
Towards the end of my, I guess, winter or fall quarter, my senior year of college, I really had no idea what I was going to do after I graduated. Had no intention of actually going to college if I wasn't going to do a sport. And so as I was coming to the end, I really didn't know what was going to happen. And I get a call from an old friend of mine who coached at a high school down by my first college, and he said, Dylan, what do you think about coaching? I was like, well, okay, why not? Mm-hmm. And I've always helped out with the younger clubs around wherever I happen to be at, and so it wasn't a foreign concept to me, but I'd never thought of it as my thing. Mm-hmm. I was an athlete, I was a competitor, I was around to win, and I viewed coaching at that point as a way for me to get better as an athlete.
Okay.
Whenever I got that call, I really started to think about it, and it really didn't take me long to think I want to be a coach.
Yeah.
And my career didn't really end the way that I would hoped it would.
Yeah.
Not many people's do, but I went a lot farther and did a lot more than a whole lot of people who do sports in general. So I am grateful for that, but I've really taken my competitiveness and I've really put it into coaching. Anybody who knows me on a personal level knows that I am as competitive as it gets. Like it doesn't matter if we're thumb wrestling, actual wrestling, like it doesn't matter. Like I'm in it to win it, and that's just how I've always been.
Right.
And coaching has really saved me from, I guess, imploding without having an outlet.
Yeah.
I've toyed with competitive sports outside of wrestling since I've graduated, but coaching's really been what's kind of guided me towards that. I'm not saying like every kid who does sports, when you're done, like, hey, go and coach. It's not for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying go and teach. Where we're at, Georgia, for you to be a head coach in high school, you have to be a certified teacher. That's true in some other states. In some states, it's not. I know up north, it's not as common. But there's a whole lot of different ways you can get involved. There's college sports if you ever get up to that level. I know my alma mater life, they have a lot of grad assistant kids who they come through the program for a year or two. They're a volunteer assistant. They get an assistant gig, and a year or two later they get a head gig. Like one of my roommates from college my senior year just got his first head coaching job as a college coach just a couple months ago. So I mean, it happens, but I think that if you struggle with the competitiveness of where do I go from here once your sport's done and you don't really have a direction, look at giving back to the generation behind you. It's really rewarding. It's competitive in a different nature. Makes you think and analyze in a way that you hadn't done before, and it's a challenge.
Yeah, I'll say, and it's nowhere near the same thing. I mean, it's a much lower level of it. But days in high school where we had to go to youth practices, or when I have to help out and try and teach anything to anyone, whether like over Christmas I tried to help out with some of the athletes on high school that were new and things like that. Coaching definitely isn't for everyone. In the sense of just like it's tough, being able to. And I'll say a lot of times you made it look so easy, and if I didn't understand it, I just blamed it on myself. Like, I'm like, oh, I don't like. I'm like, I see what you're saying, but I never understood it, and it's being able to articulate and explain something to a group of kids that not everyone thinks differently. Whether that everyone just has a different perspective and outlook on things, and so like the way they perceive something or understand how you explain a move at that, it's really like. You have to be really good at what you're doing, or have some good analogies or comparisons. Like when you talk about your front head stuff, and you talk about like it's like you're holding a football or whatever, and things like that. I always I'll try and explain it. I know when I was explaining stuff to Chesney, I'd be like, I'd be showing tight waist stuff, whatever, and I'd be like, so you're like this, and I'm just like squeezing or whatever, and I'm explaining how I am, and I go, you get what I'm saying? Every time afterwards, like, and she'd be like, I think so, and then it wouldn't play out the same way.
She's too nice to tell you that she's not.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I'm not mad at them and everything. I'm just like, I gotta understand. And
you want to learn and grow and develop.
Yeah,
further. Yeah,
and that's how Ivan said that a good way too. My buddy said, I was like, why are you? He would always talk about. He's like, I'm going to youth club practices after practice tonight or whatever. I'm doing this and that. And I'm helping out, and he was like, or I said, why? Like, why do you do that? Like, if you're so good, like, why are you sitting here doing this when you could be spending time like wrestling or doing other things or resting or whatever it is? And he's like, if you can explain it to youth level kids or like younger kids who are harder to teach and don't always understand things as much because they're younger, if you can explain it to them and have them know the move, then you know how to do the move. Like you understand the concept and everything behind it if you can explain it to someone in general. And so I was like, okay, that makes sense. Instead of like just saying, I do this move because I was taught it. Like you understand the principles and everything behind it as well. And that's something you've always tried to teach too. You want kids to understand that.
Yeah, I've always been real big on concepts behind things, of understanding why we're doing it rather than me just telling you to do it. I think that's important in most any sport.
Yeah.
You could make that fit any sport really. But I agree and disagree with that to an extent. I think there are some people who are born to teach, who are born to lead in that sense, and there are some that just plain aren't. I've met some people who were great wrestlers, better than I've ever been. That I'm like, hey, how'd you do that? And they look at me and they're like, I don't know. And that's just kind of how it is. I mean, there's people who just they can't really articulate what they're doing, but they're great at what they do.
Yeah.
but I think understanding the reasoning of why you're doing something helps you understand how to tell somebody else how to do it. Because the way that I've always gone about instructing not just my wrestlers, but my students in class too, I wasn't taught that way. That's not the way that I was taught. I've taken the knowledge that I've gained from the way that I was taught, I've applied it in a way that I feel is easier for other people to be able to understand. And if one individual doesn't understand it that way, then I come over to that individual and I present the information in another way that hopefully is they're more receptive to.
And like when it comes to like competing and things like that, regardless of what sport you do, you know, like wrestling is something I do in college right now and something you did and things like that. And it's great. And it's something that I've pursued, and everyone, and we've pursued and things like that. And it's been a good outlet, and just something fun to have around. But, when you, like the mindset you had maybe your senior year in college and things like that, and your attitude on the sport or your outlook, I don't know, how did you go about like developing that and things like that?
So my mindset my senior year was very different from a mindset my junior year, my sophomore year, and even my freshman year. Every year I had a very different mindset. My senior year, I was looking to be the best. I truly believed that I could have been a national champion my senior year. I believed it every day I put on the shoes to go and practice, and I believed it every day whenever I got off the mat, and I believed it every time I stepped on the mat to go and compete. Didn't always have that mindset. That mindset came from a lot of training, a lot of confidence, a lot of preparation, to the point where I felt that I could not fail. Whereas my freshman year of college, I was just trying to survive. I was just trying to get through it. I hadn't learned how to thrive within the practice room, how to push through a workout despite, whatever's going on in my personal life or my academic life or whatever. It was difficult to separate those things, on top of all the difficulty that wrestling brought inherently. And then my sophomore year, I finally kind of found
Your niche.
I don't want to say my niche, but between my freshman and my sophomore year, I redshirted. During that year, I had a very good coach. He helped me with my mentality a good bit. And then my redshirt sophomore year, I transferred up to Life, and I was the starter immediately. And so I really had to kind of learn to be the guy.
Okay.
On a first year team of 14 people, we had like 8 weights filled, and I was usually the first or second guy to wrestle. So I had to learn how to not just like survive the fire, but how to be the fire myself to help lead the rest of the team on and get everybody going. And it's really my first chance in college to be the guy that was the focus. And I had a lot of success. I qualified for nationals. I did very well. I was like a round or two out from placing. Beat some good kids along the way. Then my junior year, I actually kind of fell off the wagon. My mindset was not super great. My body was beat up. I didn't take care of it as well as I could have. I had some uncertainties in my personal life that left me without a support system, I guess I could say.
Okay.
And that made it difficult. There are people who have done a lot more with a lot less, but
Right.
I wasn't really prepared to be put in that situation, and so I was struggling. By the time I got it all fixed right, it was too little, too late. I was in a really stacked weight class. There were easily 6 guys in my conference alone that every single one of us couldn't end up on the podium, and I drew the short stick. I performed the worst. I didn't get out. It was a bad time. In my training over the summer, I went to big tournaments. I competed really hard. I trained with my best friend, my brother, Khalil, you know him. He's coached you a good bit. And, we both really bought in and had a lot of success. And that led to developing that mindset. That mindset isn't just something I just decided one day, like, I'm going to think like this. I'm going to go out there. I want to find the toughest guy. I want to compete against the toughest guy. That it just didn't come out of nowhere. It was it was developed,
Mm-hmm.
and it took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it was definitely the accumulation of my entire career
Yeah.
in that 1 year. And I've tried to instill it in y'all because it took me so long to get to that point. If y'all can be at that point sooner in y'all's career, then maybe y'all can have successes that I never had.
Right. And it's something like what you're talking about. It takes time to get that kind of mindset. If you watch the Jordan Burroughs documentary that Flo did, and Jordan Burroughs is kind of one of the golden boys for USA Wrestling, and he's been around for 10 years now on the world scene.
I think his first year as a world team member was 2011.
Yeah, so
I
it's
think
about
he won a world championship and then won the 2012 games.
Yeah, so about 10 years now, and the dude always just, especially in recent years, when you watch him, and I look at a lot of his interviews, like when he took bronze in Budapest 2018.
Yeah, when he destroyed his, I think it was his knee in the middle of a tournament.
Oh, I didn't know about that. I just know like he said he's never been more happy to take bronze before, and this was like going into my senior year, and I was like,
oh yeah.
And I was like, how are you like, I get like you're happy you placed for it, but like, you've gotten so many gold medals, like what makes you want to like take bronze, or how are you so satisfied with that? And he talks about
he's grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, and he was talking about, and it was, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, like stoicism or stoicism.
Yeah, stoic.
And he was like, you don't always get what you can or what you want, but you get what you can, and it's not about what happens to you; it's about how you react to it. Mm-hmm. And I guess we're at kind of different spots. I know, like, you're like, you and Khalil and people like that who've coached me and given to me. You guys are a lot older and you've been through all this already, and so you've kind of have a better understanding of it than I do. And I feel like, every year I feel so much like I'm a leap different than the year I was before, whether it's mentally, physically, or whatever it is. And there's just stuff I learned, and it's like, as far as my mentality goes, I feel like for me, a lot of times I'm very seasonal, and I want to be more consistent, but that takes time, obviously, and things happen. But like in college this past year, or in the fall, before I had surgery and everything, it was like, I felt great. Like, I felt nothing could really, like, I had a couple like rough times here and there, like a couple days where but I remember it was over the summer maybe, or in preseason. I can't remember when it was, but I was just frustrated because I was like, I get I'm not the best student. I'm not the best student in this room, or I wasn't even in high school or anything like that. And I was like, man, like, I'm really like sucking today, or I'm doing this, and I was just getting frustrated. Like, I had days like that in high school all the time, because it'd be like one day I'd be the best guy in the room, I'd be beaten up, and the first time I get taken down, I'm like, what's going on? But Devon came up and talked to me, one of my coaches, and he was like, look, man, like, you can't control that kind of stuff, and that's out of your control, and that's just something you just have to come in here and work and do what you can do. And other than that, like, it is what it is. And so I was like, maybe you're right. I'm tired of coming in here and leaving with a bitter taste in my mouth when this sport's done so much for me. There's no reason to make it seem like it's such a bad part of my day. And pretty much after that, I could come in there and get my butt kicked, whatever happened, and just get just beat up, or just I'd be so exhausted afterwards, or whatever it was. Or even if I had a good day, nothing was getting me down. And I tried to translate that mindset and attitude I had towards everything going on, and whether it was like school or circumstances. I know I had to leave practice early, or no, I was trying to get cleared so I could come back, and I had to go talk to the neuro people across the street from the temp room, and my car got towed, and I sat there and I was pretty bummed about that for a minute, but I was like, well, I gotta go get this news. I got the news, and the news was kind of bad, and so I was like, I took a second, I was like, this really stinks, and I called my mom and told her. And even when I found out, I got called in the middle of class, and they were like, hey, you have a brain tumor. And I was like, well, they were like, you have a glioma. I was like, I don't know what that is. And they're like, it's a brain tumor. And I was like, okay. And they'll go, we'll call you back in a few days and we'll talk about something else. And I just went back to class, and it was like, maybe it's because it didn't quite register with me, and it took me a minute, but I was like, this doesn't feel real. But I had a lot of people ask me, and whether people, like all my friends and stuff, and they were like, how are you not like freaking out right now? And I felt like I had a pretty good attitude for that kind of stuff, because I was just like, it's out of my control, in the sense of I can only control, and you said this a lot in high school, and I try to apply that to everything. It's you can only control your attitude and your effort. And so I can't get rid of this right now. I can't do anything like that. So it's not worth freaking out over. And freaking out over anything bad that happens to you, whether it's losing a match that you wanted to win or whether it's having a bad day at work, school, friends, whoever, whatever it is, you control how you respond to those kind of things. And that really shows what kind of person you are. And I'm very like happy I have those kind of moments. And I feel like, everyone has their rough patches, but as long as you know that like that's how I think you should respond to things, it's a lot easier to get back and have a better attitude and mindset towards things.
Right. I'm glad you actually brought up that, that I used to say that all the time. That wasn't something I always had. I remember my first quarter of life. I could even still tell you which classroom it was in. I took a sports psychology class. I didn't care a whole lot for the teacher. I mean, she wasn't a bad teacher. I don't know. I just, you got teachers you love and you got teachers you don't. That's just kind of how it is. But I distinctly remember talking about within one of the units, your sphere of control. There are three things. There's things that you have direct control over, there's things you have influence over, and there's things you have no control and no influence over. For example, I am very much in control of what I get up and eat for breakfast.
Right.
I get up, I decide I'm going to make me a bowl of cereal, and that's what it is. I go during wrestling season, for example, I go to work and I don't get home till at least 7 o'clock. Well, by that time, my wife's already home. She's got our son. She's making dinner for everybody. I have no direct control over what's for dinner. However, I might have an influence over it, where if I text her, it's like, hey, I'd like to have this, that, or the other for dinner tonight. That doesn't necessarily mean that's what's going to happen, but, I've influenced that as much as I can. And then on the other end of it, say I leave my lunch at home and I got to go eat that school lunch. I've got no control and no influence over whatever they're making in that cafeteria.
Yeah.
Out of all those things, what's worth me getting upset about? Truthfully, not really a whole lot of it.
Yeah.
But if there's something I want to be upset about, I want to be upset about something that I have control over, because then I can control me not getting upset about it again. It does me no good to be upset about something I have no control over. As far as this, the whole COVID thing going on right now, the coronavirus and what have you. Yeah, it sucks. I would truthfully probably rather be at work. I'd rather be interacting and, teaching my kids, being able to go and wrestle with all y'all, do all that fun stuff. But I have no control over that. So I work with what I have. I do the best with what I got. And I think that's really important. Within sports, of course, any competitive athlete needs to have that understanding. But I think it's even so much more important in life.
Yeah.
You hear people talk about it all the time. It's like, if I can get through this sport, I can get through whatever in life. Wrestlers say it all the time. And I'm sure other sports say it too. But, it's just one of those things. Like, I feel like after everything I've gone through that I won't ever come across anything that's difficult. And truthfully, I really haven't. There have been things that have been difficult, don't get me wrong, but I've never felt that I couldn't do them. The challenge of, bringing a child into this world and being responsible for a living, breathing entity beyond myself or a dog, it's a challenge. And I'm not going to sit here and say it's all sunshines and rainbows, because it's not. Anybody who's been around me when my kid's been freaking out knows. And anybody who's ever had a kid knows. Sometimes you got to get up at 11, at 1, at 3, at 5, and then get up at 6:30 when your alarm goes off and go about your day like nothing happened. That's just kind of what it is. But I can't control that.
Yeah.
I can influence it. I can help put my son in a position that I believe is best for him, that will help him rest as much as he can, and that will help my wife rest as much as she can, and hopefully, God willing, let me rest as much as I can. But that's just kind of what it is. Like, that's the most that I can do. And any negative thoughts or negative emotions put into that, it doesn't fix anything. You can sit here and be upset all you want, but being upset doesn't fix problems. Actions fix problems.
Yeah, I think that's something, it's taken me a long time to realize that. And even when like you do realize it, it's still really easy to fall into that kind of cycle of just like getting so upset about things and getting so frustrated and just overworked about things like that. And that's one of my greatest things that I feel like I could ever take away from the sport is, regardless of what I ever accomplish or don't accomplish or whatever it is, if I can take those kind of lessons I learned to apply to practice to where I come in and I can help myself better myself, then I can apply that to my real life and go places. And I think like the beginning, at least preseason senior year, and then like halfway through the season, I kind of had that like attitude like subconsciously. Like I didn't really know what it was though. I couldn't put it into words. And even junior year in the spring, when Khalil was coaching us and things like that, I think I realized that then too. But I didn't understand like mindset. I feel like maybe it's because it's been becoming more of a big thing to me. And like I feel like it's more important, like mindset training or how your mentality and your approach to things are. But I feel like that it's become a lot more popular. Or I hear a lot more athletes talking about it now.
I think that's definitely a product of where you're at.
Okay.
Life has a big positive psychology program.
Yeah.
And it has, it's done its job. I think they were just beginning to get it started as I was on my way out. But I know that there have been a lot of people that have, preached by it. There's obviously it's rubbed off on me to an extent. One of my roommates in college was a psych major, and him and I talked about it a lot. And even now going into, life, Coach O, he brought in Mindset Mike to help kind of guide you on the right direction. And I think that's definitely kind of like a niche thing right now in the combat sports world.
Yeah.
Especially in sports where it's just so grueling on your body. It's important to make sure that your mindset's the right thing. You can get away with having a less than ideal mindset in certain team sport settings,
right?
Because you have everybody else around you to pick you up.
Mm-hmm.
But when you're in a sport where it's just you, it's important that your head's on right, because if it's not, there's no safety net. But I definitely think that's it's definitely a product of where you're at.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not everybody thinks like that.
Yeah.
It's definitely uncommon.
Yeah, and what you're saying about like the single sport athletes or when you're not in a team sport environment, and mindset just makes such a difference to like how you perform in any aspect of your life, whether it's sports or not. And what you were talking about, those mindset, when they brought Mindset Mike in, I always loved those days when he came in person or when we had the conference calls or whatever. I love hearing and learning about that kind of stuff, because I think mindset and my mentality and approach to things is, I never knew this kind of stuff before. And so before, it's like I'm just all over the place. It felt like I'd either, like if it was something that really made me mad over time, like, or immediately I'm just sitting there and I'm freaking out or I'm getting frustrated and letting it just eat at me. But learning this kind of stuff, like I realize that stuff's important for me and it's something I can build on. And I look at some of my friends or teammates or past teammates or whatever, and I try and talk about this stuff to them and be like, this is so cool to me, and I feel like everyone could take some from it. And they're like, I don't care about that. Like, that doesn't mean anything to me. And everyone's different.
Some people, it don't matter, man.
Yeah, like some people, their attitude, like I try to talk to some people who have had crazy success in comparison to me, I guess. Like, and I'm like, you don't like think any of this stuff's important? And they're like, no, I just don't care. I just kind of go out there and do my thing. And that's their attitude and things like that. And whether they realize it or not, I still think like they obviously have an attitude and a mentality towards stuff.
It just means less for them.
Yeah, and I'm like,
there are some people who, if they're not on top of their mentality, they will crash and they will burn and they will do it with fireworks. I mean, it's gonna happen. But then there's people who whether they're too stupid to realize their mentality or they just don't care. There are people who just go out there and just get it done, and those people exist. They're around. They're few and far between. Yes, hats off indeed. But yeah,
I don't know. I just can't. I don't know. We got a card, and I was looking it up just now. He gave us a card, and it was like mindset principles, and there's two of them that I feel like are applicable for everyone, because some of them are just about like match things or whatever for wrestling. But the first one was, I'm thankful for the opportunity to wrestle, and just for realizing that your situation isn't as bad as other people had it. Like, I always try to tell myself if something sucky happened, I was like, there's worse things going on right now. So what's the point of getting too frustrated about this? And so if I walk away from wrestling practice, angry that like I didn't score today, or I didn't pin as many people as I wanted, or whatever it is, it's like there's people in there that'll never get to do that again. whether it's because their time's passed, health issues, and they just never had the opportunity, money, whatever it is. And I'm out here and I have the opportunity, and I'm very fortunate and blessed to have those kind of things in my life. And I'm over here frustrated over little things that really don't matter at the end of the day. And the other one was having no fear of losing or making mistakes in general. And I feel like that's something for me personally, not just like even in wrestling. Like if we go out and do anything in public, Schouw could probably tell you, I'm so like, sometimes I can be awkward or nervous or things like that, and it's like I have such a fear of like looking dumb sometimes or things like that. And I feel like that just in a lot of situations it inhibits you and keeps you and holds you back from being able to perform or just like enjoying life to the best you can.
Yeah, I definitely agree with those. I actually had a coach whenever I was it was the spring after my senior year. Lee Roper, he's the assistant coach at UNI now. I was very, very grateful to have him as a coach for one spring. He tweeted out something, and God, I couldn't even tell you when he tweeted it out, but it was a kid cutting weight still eats more food than some percent of the world. And he essentially is referencing, those third world kind of countries that don't have a lot of wealth, don't have a lot of money, kids who, they might not eat today, they might not eat tomorrow. And that really kind of put it in perspective for me as somebody who cut a lot of weight at that point in college. That it speaks volumes.
Yeah.
Be grateful for the opportunities that you have, because not everybody has them.
Right.
Great example. I say it all the time. I'm so very grateful for the opportunities that I had competitively, school-wise, among a lot of other things. You easily could have lost those opportunities. I'm very, very glad that I got to attempt to instill in you the idea of being grateful for what you do have. It's important because there's so many people that'll never have that opportunity for one reason or another. Maybe they weren't blessed with a healthy body, maybe they weren't blessed with a loving family. There's so many different things that could go wrong, and with everything that goes on and all the, I don't want to say entitlement, but kind of entitlement of people around nowadays, this very easily could not be the way things are.
Right.
You could have been born in a different part of the world where you can't speak your mind. You could have been born 100 years earlier where the infant mortality rate was like 50% or something insane like that. Mm-hmm. So be grateful for all your opportunities to be able to do things. I am grateful that I have a job that I love, that I get to interact with people that I love to be around, and that I've had the opportunities that I have. I know it's hard to do day in, day out, is get up, and I'm just grateful for everything that I got going for me today. Well, you have a midterm that you hadn't studied for, you got to fight with your significant other, and you didn't buy groceries last night, so you don't have any food. It's hard to sit there and be grateful.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have a significant other, you have an opportunity to get a higher education, and you have an opportunity to get food. You just missed the opportunity.
Right.
So, no matter how you look at it, it's important to know that to be grateful for what you have is very important. And if it might not always be the easiest thing to do, but find a silver lining in what's going on.
Oh, for sure.
Because there almost always is one.
Yeah. And I'll say that about everything that like as far as you and Khalil and some, all my, the coaches I've had, I'm so thankful for that. And not to sit up here and like turn this into like a list of things, but I expected when I got to college to everyone kind of be, at least when it came to like an attitude or mentality, mindset, perspective thing, everyone to be kind of, or wanting to be on the same page that I do. I'm not the best wrestler by any means, but as of right now, and I can put in work and I can do my best to get where I want to be. But people who are around me who are better than me, around me, are way more successful than me. That kind of stuff doesn't mean as much to them. Or when it comes to the things I've learned, whether it's the principles behind wrestling moves and trying to understand other things, so you have a better understanding. You're not just running moves to run them. I was like, I've been so fortunate for like the coaches I've had and the kind of things I've been taught, because there's like certain habits. Something Coach Schouw's always tried to do is besides just trying to make us better people and better athletes or whatever. If we plan on going to the college level, he tries to prepare us as best as he can for it. With our the kind of habits we develop. And I'm sitting around. Like one thing was like we don't drink sodas in season. If we ever caught anyone like cursing or whatever, we had to do push-ups because he wants us to be a respectable team and he wants us to be good kids and not just like kids in class who are causing trouble and they think that kid's a wrestler and like have a stereotype among us. And he wants that to be positive, if anything. But like I'd sit there and I was like, I understand you gotta put good things in your body during season because if you want to perform good, you gotta fuel yourself the right way and you gotta do other things. But we go to tournaments and I see kids going up to the concession stands. They're about to wrestle and they're buying Skittles or a soda. And I'm like, how do you not die? Like, how are you not suffering from that? And I see people in college who are still like doing that kind of stuff and other things like that. And I'm like, in the moment, I'd be like, I wish I could like eat like snacks right now or do this. But it's like, I'm grateful for it because it taught me things. And I get to I see some of my teammates and dumb things they'll do or people around me or friends I grew up with. I'm like, how are you not taught to be different, like, and stuff like that? And not everyone's fortunate enough to have people like that to point them in the right direction, at least.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in doing the little things add up to big things.
Mm-hmm.
My college coach instilled it in me, and I try to instill it in y'all. And a lot of why I do that is, I think I've got one wrestler on my team right now who wrestled before high school. So every single one of the kids that I've got is behind the 8 ball whenever they come into the wrestling room because to compete at a high level, you need years and years and years and years of training. And so, that's a lot of why I run the program that I do. I try to give kids year-round opportunities to continue training as much as they want to allow them to be successful. But I definitely believe that taking these little steps puts us ahead of those who don't. There's kids that we've seen at tournaments that are great wrestlers as a freshman, gets off the mat after a tough match, and the kid's parents bring him over a bag of Skittles and a soda pop, and it's like, imagine how much better you would be if you cut that out.
Right.
And I firmly believe that placing our athletes in a position to fuel themselves appropriately gives us a step up.
Mm-hmm.
So even though we might not be as good of a wrestler or as athletic or as smart or any of that, it gets us one step closer.
Right.
It helps close that gap. If somebody gives us a chance to close the gap, that we're going to take it. And we need to close the gap because, like I said, I really think we're behind the 8 ball. I mean, you yourself, you only had 3 years of high school whenever I got to you.
Yeah.
And it's tough to jump those levels and be competitive and get to that level. But here we are now. You've gone from a kid who didn't win a match his freshman year of high school to you're in a college room and winning.
Yeah. That's about closing the gap and things like that. I've seen, it sucks sometimes. I'd hate it because I'd be like, we're out here trying to do all these right things, and we may not have, we're not the best kids, and we don't, may not have the most smarts or technique, but we're learning, and we have great coaches. We just may not have the most competitive room and things like that. But it's like me and Branson and Ethan and stuff. When we'd go to tournaments, we'd be like, this kid's out here eating this or doing this after he's winning, and this kid's like a placer, a champ or whatever, state champ, whatever he is. I'm like, how are you this? And you're sitting here eating this and that and fueling your body with that, and it would make me angry. But I remember plenty of times with all of us and anyone on the team who's a returner. There's kids that there's kids I've lost to, and within a year, just coming back a year later, just having that off season, the summer, the spring, whatever it was, I come back and I blow them out the water, or I close that gap, and it's way more obvious that I'm putting in a lot more effort and work than they are, and that's satisfying to me, just in the sense, one, I guess I'm winning, but it's like it's good to know that those things pay off, and it's not always, it's really easy too, in those situations where, in the moment, like I'm sitting here and every weekend, like my first couple seasons doing freestyle and Greco, I'm going to every tournament just to get thrown on my dome, and I'm like, I'm not taking away anything from this, I'm just getting like the junk kicked out of me, and I'd have a win here or there, and I'd be like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm just out here losing. But like that next year, like when the actual season would start up in folk style, I was like, it's pay. You could tell there's a level jumped, and you may not notice in those times because it's like you're going against tougher guys or whatever it is. It just feels like it's easy to get discouraged and think that you're not seeing progress with anything. But thinking long term and waiting, I guess, is a good thing.
It comes down to faith, and
yeah.
I feel funny sitting here talking to you about faith, but if you know that you trust the process and that you're gonna follow the process no matter what,
That's
it's gonna breed success, and that's something that translates into all facets of life. I know that if I do the right thing day in, day out, I will be rewarded, regardless of if you are rewarded immediately or not. If you believe that, then eventually it's going to be true.
Okay.
You're just going to continue to put yourself in a position time in and time out to have successes, and eventually the successes are going to begin to come, and it's going to get easier. And that's definitely true for wrestling, but for any important thing in life, it's true too. Whether you're working a hard laboring job and you're trying to cut up to the next level of management to get that pay increase or the better hours or whatever, it's true. Whether you're starting your own business and you're just on the grind, it's just you, and you finally get a big break, and somebody picks up your product and they start selling it, or you get a big investor or an endorsement or anything like that. It's the process that gets you there, being process oriented, following the little steps to get you to the big goal. It's valuable for, I'd argue, anybody and anything.
Yeah. I hope that, like, for anyone listening, at least, that this is a way to, like, you can take some away from it. And if anything, I love talking about this kind of stuff for me because I always have something I can learn or take away from it. Or if anything, I can check myself and be like, am I, approaching things the right way, or making sure that I'm having a good head on my shoulders and I'm not letting little things affect big parts of my life or my attitude or just my happiness. But I appreciate you being on and saying things. It's fun. I just love rambling. But thanks for listening, guys. And if you took anything away from it, I hope you did. And if not, then I hope you enjoyed this as your background music for whatever it was you're doing. But thanks for listening. I'll see you guys on the next episode.